The first thing we have to realize is that the way our communities are going, we have seen that sometimes those people who give opinions from the pulpit may not necessarily be qualified to give an opinion from the pulpit. But also the potential of the opposite is true. Someone who is qualified to give an opinion from the pulpit, when he or she gives an opinion, they are often pulled down, even though their ability to give an opinion is legitimate. Therefore, number one, the reason why we need to be able to differentiate between the two is we need to know who is in a position of authority to give an opinion and who is not. Number one. Number two, in this, and I'm going to use the word colloquially, in this game, there are many titles that are given to different scholars. Someone is a Sayyid, someone is a Sheikh. Sometimes we have titles given to certain people in the community, whereas in reality, those titles are well above what they... For example, in certain communities, we are very quick to hand people out the title of Al-Allama. Often on a poster, you will see Allama such and such, Allama this and this. In the Hawzawi sense, Al-Allama is the one station below Ayatullah. And look at the level of a person who's given the title Al-Allama. His Eminence Al-Allama Sayyid Tabatabai, rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh. Sayyid Muhammad Hussain Tabatabai, the author of Al-Mizan. The reason why Sayyid Tabatabai was never given the title Ayatullah, even though sometimes he is referred to as Ayatullah, is because in the traditional system of the Hawza today, when a person has completed their Bahth Kharij and they are now a mujtahid, proven mujtahid in fiqh, you often are given the title of being Ayatullah. Whereas a person who may focus on other sciences and they have not declared or presented their abilities as a mujtahid in fiqh, they may not be given that title Ayatullah. They are still at the level of Al-Allama. Allama Tabatabai for sure was a mujtahid in his own right. But his writings and what he produced was primarily in philosophy and then the tafsir of the Quran. And because he did not provide certain texts and works in this area of fiqh and ahkam, he was traditionally not given the title of Ayatullah, but very well known as Al-Allama. This is not a low rank, this is not a middle rank, it is a very high rank. Often today you will see many people on posters being given the title Al-Allama, but they are not in the Hawzawi sense Al-Allama. Similarly, I have seen many a times posters offering the title Hujjat al-Islam wal-Mu'mineen. Have you seen it? H-I-W-M, and then the Shaykh or the Sayyid. Again, I will emphasize Hujjat al-Islam, someone who is an evidence of Islam and an authority in Islam. That title cannot and should not be bandied about. Allah is my witness. I'm not telling you this because I want you to praise me. I want you to realize the realities. Recently, we did a program at a particular center. The poster was put out with HIMW, Hujjat al-Islam wal-Muslimin, or HIWM, whatever it is, before my name. And the poster went out, and I messaged and I said, take that down. Do not muddy that title with someone as low as me. You have to respect that title. It means that person has genuinely gone through a system of study and producing that he is deserved or she is deserved of that title. So the second problem we have is that sometimes titles are mixed up, and as a result, the community cannot differentiate between who is an alim and who is a dhakir. Second reason. Third reason as to why this is so important is because actually, arguably, the most important, when I say important, I mean prominent, position in the community now has become the one who takes the pulpit. Dhakireen sometimes carry more weight than even maraji'. Sometimes you will see people who can speak eloquently. The way practically their messages are being delivered is actually being delivered far and wide, even more far and wide than maraji' al-kiram sometimes. There's a study that's been done recently by Dr. Ali Raza Bojani, very well known to this community, and Dr. Morgan Clark. Dr. Clark is a senior member of the faculty at the University of Oxford in the anthropology department. So not an ordinary individual, a very accomplished scholar. Dr. Ali Raza Bojani needs no introduction from me. Dr. Bojani and Dr. Clark We require an intermediary to deliver that to us. Now let's be honest, the majority of us will not take time to read the fatwa for ourselves, time to research it for ourselves. Let's be honest, the majority of the people will just go to the alim. And they'll go to the alim and say, what's Sayyid Sistani's opinion on X? And you also know that certain masail, they are mediated through opinions and understandings and interpretations. And the mediation happens at a number of levels. The mediation happens at the alim's knowledge of the level of the fatwa, their understanding of the fatwa, and the way in which you and I who receive the discussion then also interpret it. I'll give you an example. Dr. Bajani was telling me about this Living Sharia project, and he interviewed many people from the Khoja community about their experiences with resident ulama, with the Sharia, and they often asked about the masail that certain people find problematic. And he mentions, he says there's one madrasa teacher, as an example. This madrasa teacher, she found the mas'ala of handshaking to be very, very difficult. You know, the mas'ala of handshaking is, are we allowed to shake hands with a mahram? And it's a usual problem. There's the fatwa, and then obviously you know that sometimes the individual alim will then try to understand it and negotiate it and then present it. But then you will also try to understand it for yourself. So she says, I'm a very strict follower of His Eminence Ayatollah As-Sistani, may Allah preserve him. And so it's absolutely haram to shake hands with someone who is na mahram. Then she continues to say, but I've always heard from the scholars that you're not supposed to offend someone. So when I went to go and have this issue of handshaking, I really struggle with it because I want to keep to the fatwa of Sayyid Sistani, but I've always heard that I'm not supposed to offend the non-Muslim. So now I don't know how to be able to deal with this mas'ala. Job interview, circumstances, this, that. The other time, Dr. Bajani says, there was someone else. Now this person had the same issue with the same mas'ala. How to implement that famous handshaking mas'ala, the one that we always kind of debate and grapple with. Or some people do at least. Now this person wasn't like this sister, the madrasa teacher. She said, I'm a strict follower to the dot of what Sayyid Sistani says. But my problem is, I've heard that I'm not supposed to offend. His position was 180 degrees opposite. His position was, I don't understand how this contravenes hijab. Hijab is normally something that is around the sexualization of someone. If I'm just handshaking and it's a greeting, this shouldn't be considered to be anything that breaks hijab. But I've never found any marja that understands the mas'ala in that way, and therefore, even though I believe it doesn't contravene hijab, I won't do it. I've looked at all the maraji' al-kiram, and not one of them agrees with my personal opinion. Now understand the nuance of what I'm saying, why the alim and the dhakir is so important here. In the first case, you had a sister who declared, I am strict with Sayyid Sistani's opinion. I follow it 100%. But I've heard often that you're not supposed to offend someone. How many of you have heard that you're not supposed to offend someone? How many? Hands up. I will say that's over 75% of you. I'm going to tell you now from this pulpit, there is no such thing in Islam. No marja has ever put that as part of the considerations of the handshaking issue. Not one person. There's no such thing. This consideration of I'm not supposed to offend the other does not exist in this mas'ala whatsoever. It does not exist. I've said it 3 times. What there is the issue of hardship. When excessive hardship or burden comes upon you, this is when you can negotiate the mas'ala with that situation. But the bar is excessive hardship, as an example. And there are other criteria. But this idea of offending someone does not exist in Islam. Who said you're not allowed to offend someone? If your belief is this and you're responsible to Allah, offend someone all you want. It's not a problem. Now the point I make is, she had been hearing, according to her understanding, remember she's a very traditionalist, strict person. I've been hearing. Who have you been hearing from? Can you see that? The alim will know the mas'ala properly. That there is no such thing as don't offend. the dhakir may not necessarily have studied the mas'ala properly and may include a condition and then attribute it to Sayyid Sistani, which is nothing to do with His Eminence Sayyid Sistani. Can you see that? Can you see how important the difference between alim and dhakir is? On the other side, Dr. Bajani is saying that there's another person, remember the second person, his personal understanding, and you all know we have our ways in which we negotiate problems. He says, my personal understanding was that it doesn't break hijab. I should be able to, and I actively went to every single marja, or I went to every alim and said, is there a marja that you know that allows me to do this? Is there any one marja that I can legitimately go to and say, look, it's not contravening hijab, shake your hands if you want to. And every alim said no. And every marja said no. So the role of the alim in the dhakir is very important, because sometimes a person may not understand a mas'ala properly, misconstrue it and present it to the audience such that now the ordinary individual is misguided. Sayyid Sistani's opinion is being mediated by levels of people all the way down until it reaches me and you. Can you see that? Here are 3 reasons as to why we need to be able to understand the difference between an alim and a dhakir.